This is what all the fuss is about. Why are full-grown adults fighting over these? Well, here's one reason.
I want to get it.
It's 1983, the deadliest Christmas on record. Moms are strangling other shoppers with their purses, while dads stand atop displays showing dominance that they have successfully attained the highest, most sought-after toy of the season, the Cabbage Patch Kid. This is PopCon, a salute to all pop culture, but mostly the 80s. I'm Victor, your Generation 1 host, and as such, I was there. That's right, I was there for all of those great toys that were made famous in the decade. And I was there for all the crazes, including this one. Were you? I may have been there, but no one in my family was getting a Cabbage Patch Kid. But I was intrigued by these hideously cute dolls rearing their ugly and adorable heads. These dolls that knew no gender boundaries. Not just one, but many of my friends had multiple dolls, and at $50 a pop, it's no wonder that shoppers were trampling each other like the Who concert of 1979. Whose fault was it? Was it this guy? No, but we'll get to him. Was it the 80s themselves? Most definitely. So let's uncover the Christmas of greed in 1983, when people shelled out a lot of cabbage for these no-frills, no-action feature, huggable dolls.
Cabbage Patch Kids were created by Xavier Roberts, a Southern cowboy and confirmed bachelor with a penchant for wearing cowboy hats and creating his own babies. That's right, sewing them with a German technique called needle molding. More sculpting than simply sewing, this structured technique, new to America, proved quality and shaped a more human doll as opposed to the common rag variety. Now, I will not get into his relationship with Martha Nelson Thomas some years before and the lawsuit that followed. That's for somebody else's video. Either way, it was Xavier that ran with the idea of these rag dolls and made them what they would become. First called Little People and were made by him and some local seamstresses out of Cleveland, Georgia. After success in fairs and traveling shows, his award-winning doll Dexter at the Osceola Fair in Kissimmee, Florida, had him returning home where he and some school friends created Appalachian Artworks Incorporated and began making and selling them at Babyland General, an old turn-of-the-century clinic in 1978. This was his headquarters, and Xavier was the father of the Cabbage Patch Kids long before they adopted that moniker.
Adopted. See what I did there? Adopted, Cabbage Patch Kids. Makes sense, right? Alright.
Anyway, fast forward to 1983. It was one hell of a year. Seriously, with Reagan in power and success in leisure at an all-time high, the economy was ripe, and so many people with disposable income wanted the newest and greatest thing. Marketing and advertisers were not afraid to give them what they wanted and more, as regulations for the toy industry and advertising were changing. It was the collect them all generation, and I was part of the onslaught, as I'd been collecting my Masters of the Universe and the small G.I. Joes, and was just on the cusp of the next year's biggest boy toy, the Transformers. This was a Star Wars year, and I was no doubt going to make out like a bandit at Christmas with Return of the Jedi toys. But the intrigue was on dolls. They wanted a share of this market haul, and the new Cabbage Patch Kid was going to do it. And their marketing was genius.
By 1982, the popular Little People by Xavier Roberts were licensed to Coleco. Yeah, that Coleco from ColecoVision video games, and they changed their name to Cabbage Patch Kids, kind of following the old mythology or old wives' tale that babies were plucked from the heads of cabbage. Talk about sexual repression.
Xavier was still their father, and Babyland was growing as an awkward and popular location where babies were born of heads of cabbage right there while the giving tree went into labor. Simple but consistent design for the dolls were the strength. The unique look, where the only gender difference was the mop of yarn hair, was both different and charming, as their plush bodies resembled old-time rag dolls, but with a more human body feature like a plastic baby doll. But the old-time adorableness that comes from a huggable friend, in this case a baby. Oh, and every one of them was different. Hear that? Every one of them. No two of these dolls was alike during the entire line. But it was this coup de grace that made them stand out from the crowd. The birth certificate and the adoption papers. Yes, this was the first foray into an incredible marketing extravaganza, allowing your child to adopt the named little bundle of joy, freshly picked. You could send it back to Coleco for an officially stamped and certified adoption. I'm sure there was a cost for the notary. These names, by the way, originally from the Georgia birth records of 1938, were in the vein of Abigail Colette, Augustus Burt, Babette Lorraine, Basil Remus, Chastity Peggy, Delvine Dwago, Floyd Archibald. I feel like they were all born in Mayberry. The temperature was rising on these new entries into the fast-growing and diversifying toy landscape. Coleco and their newly named Cabbage Patch Kids were poised to be the gift of 1983. Now imagine, Christmas 1983, and every woman is prepared in her sturdiest shoulder pads and white sneakers with power suit, just waiting for the bell. Even competing against dad sent to tackle or straight arm any mom that got in the way to pick up one of these, or maybe even more of the most wanted toy of the year. Kids would not take a lookalike or a knockoff, and they knew the difference. And if it wasn't clear, then Xavier Roberts' signature as a tattoo on every single baby's butt cheek would prove the genuine article. Store doors flung open. Early Black Friday morning throngs that were once in lines were now masses of screaming parents who lived out their track and field or boxing aspirations in the aisles of every toy store anywhere. So how did it go down? The week following Thanksgiving, the world went crazy. Some department store advertisements promised the doll, and it caused thousands of people to gather at the door prior to the store's opening. Then the mob rushed in and trampled women, customers, shoppers, anyone. A near riot happened at the Hills department store in Charleston, West Virginia, when 5,000 people fought for the store's 120 dolls. 5 people were injured in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and the store manager armed himself with a baseball bat. They weren't acting like adults, he said. They were acting like crazed maniacs. Nothing had created a frenzy like this. It really defied anything people had seen. Now, since then, we've had Furby and we've had Elmo crazes, but this was the first. This is the one that brought out the worst in that Christmas time shopping. Some stores were smart. Police asked the store to allow in only a few shoppers at a time. There were also some stores who assigned numbers to customers on a first-come, first-served basis. In a letter from a shopper on that day, a woman describes the incident. As the key appeared to unlock the door between us and the unclaimed treasures, I felt myself being suffocated by the pressure of the aggressive hands of people, running only to escape the rushing tidal wave behind me, caring not for the dolls but my own safety. I was suddenly pushed to the floor with my shoes flying in different directions. As I was laying on the floor being trampled and calling for help, I feared for my life. I arose stocking-footed, face bleeding, and knees badly bruised. Toy stores and department stores were overrun with climbing and jumping customers, while packages of dolls were tumbling and being thrown and pulled out from arms and wrenched from hands, while boxes were beat to hell in the melee to get one of those prized pipsqueaks. There was blood, there was broken bones, there was defeat for the empty-handed who would have to result in IOUs to their precious bundle of spoiled joy back home when no box would be under the tree that year. And don't even try to fool them with the imitation like flower babies. But you could always go to the black market, and yes, that was a thing, as well as some of the offers at other businesses to trade in your Cabbage Patch Kid, along with adoption papers, for possibly a discount on such items like a new car. There were just not enough. Coleco did not foresee the popularity, and no store could keep them in stock. Coleco doubled their efforts, but because word got out that there would never be enough for Christmas, well, all hell broke loose. Dolls with $21 suggested retail were definitely sold at retail for $50 and more on the aftermarket, which people took advantage of. By the end of 1983, 3 million had been sold, but the demand could not be met. What do you do with a successful property in the 80s? Well, if you hadn't gone into the market with accompanying media, you did just that. Cabbage Patch Kids were now everywhere. First on anything from lunchboxes to stickers and even clothing. They would soon be the stars of their own special, cartoon, and even as live, ginormous babies in the Macy's Day Parade. They also diversified with preemies in 1985. Yes, premature babies. And then kusas, animal babies that, well, defy explanation. And then possibly because of Hands Across America, the Cabbage Patch Kid World Travelers came out. And they came with passports too. Marketing teams were in overdrive, and there were even parodies. The toy industry was bonkers then. Boy, do I miss the 80s. They knew they were big, and they held on for a hot second. With all the famous toys of the era, they were the only ones with such madness. They had riots and in-store battles. That year, Star Wars was there, and He-Man and G.I. Joe were certainly tops for boys. Although some boys had Cabbage Patch Kids, girls were the target and top owners. They took them to school in baby buggies and strollers. They fed them at recess, and they had play dates with other kids' dolls. They got brothers and sisters and attended to them far beyond what I'd seen before. They were everywhere, in space, on everything, the cover of Newsweek, and then they were gone. They had a good run for about 3 years. By 1986, they had all but vanished. There were traces, but something new always comes to replace the king of the mountain. Like this guy. Away from the simple plush to a tape deck talking Bruin. Kids are and will always be finicky. They would have been gone entirely, but they had switched hands from bankrupt Coleco to Hasbro, to Mattel, and a handful of others before their current owners, Wicked Cool Toys. Now, Xavier was filthy rich, and still is, but has never forgotten what got him his wealth. In 2009, he moved Babyland General to its new 70,000 square foot space that continues today as a popular, if not creepy, free local attraction to adopt your own baby right from the Cabbage Patch under the magic crystal tree. Hey, if you've ever been to Babyland General in Georgia, please let me know. Write me in the comments. I might want to talk to you. So, they may have declined, but never completely disappeared. They certainly didn't appear on the mass merchandise and media that they had, but the dolls remain and have over the years, with some upgrades and changes, like the hair-chewing one. Look it up. But you can find a similar style to the original or even an original on the secondary market still today. But like everything that reboots, it's never quite the same.
You know, but as any collector, especially as adult collectors, this fad will never die. Its legacy will remain in the hearts, the toy shelves, and even on the asses of some that were there. Now, I love Christmas, and I live it big every year. But to quote the Grinch, before his heart grew 3 sizes that day, maybe Christmas doesn't come from a store, but in 1983 it sure as hell did. I hope you had fun and enjoyed this. Merry Christmas, everybody. Until next time.